Why are people talking about food? I just ate, and now I'm hungry again. This community. I love it. Hello, Galaxy. I'm Chris Pirillo, and you've tuned into a live edition of the Locker Room Daily Reporter, TLDR for short. It's a weekend edition, which means it's in this channel. Normally we do TLDR, as you very well know, in the other YouTube channel, youtube.com/LockerGnome. That way you can pretty much determine how the video goes versus the videos that I usually post to this channel, which are largely tech-related and specific to a topic that I want to talk about. TLDR is kind of a compromise. You still get me, but you get to control me. Not like, like a virtual marionette, I suppose. Like that.
Droid?
A droid, if you were. Like, not an android, though. Like a droid, like Star Wars droid. Now, if you're wondering where the echo came from, it's actually because we have a special guest in our midst. He popped out of the mist here in Seattle. Roberto Blake, who you should be following on Twitter, certainly, or across all the social platforms. He's engaging in every direction, literally, like omnipresent in the social medias. He was, I would say, I didn't really bill it this way. We didn't bill it this way. A keynote for the Creator Advocate Workshop yesterday at Adobe in Seattle, which I thought went well. I mean, it was a very tight-knit group. And Roberto is, I'm sorry, not to talk about you as you're not standing here, but you got me thinking even then when I was watching you on stage. I'm like, well, maybe I need to do this. Maybe I should do that. And we were having these conversations, effectively here. We had him over to the Gnomestead. And, those conversations continued up until the point where we started to broadcast. But Roberto is also probably more of a gearhead, a gadget guy than I am, knows a heck of a lot more about the camera setup stuff than I care to imagine. So I know I don't give you a lot of that because I don't really care about hardware, but Roberto may very well. He knows a lot about doing things on YouTube as well. So if you thought about that being a part of your future, you may want to ask those questions. Let's go ahead and start with the first super chat. Morgan Ostring says, first, good evening. Good evening. It is evening time. I wasn't sure if we were going to be able to do this, but I'm very happy to be able to do TLDR live for you right now, and it will be saved for posterity. So make these questions good, because if you don't, I think Roberto and I are going to go down the unfortunate path of discussing recent smartphone buying decisions. And yeah, if the smartphone thing doesn't happen, then that was also Roberto's voice. You saw you got a little higher pitched there in the background. Liz is still here. The other thing that we could talk about is Star Wars, which I recognize not everybody wants to talk about. So y'all have a choice with TLDR, as always. And Roberto, I think, can talk longer than I could, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Roberto. You get to sit in the fancy chair. I'm going to sit on the other side.
Get to sit in the captain's chair.
So if you've ever wanted to say anything to my community, well, now you have a chance to say it. What would you want to say?
Let's see. What we can go with for your community is like, welcome to the dark side of the Force.
See, I told you.
So it's
I warned everybody that this could be a thing.
This chair is very Palpatine now that I think about it. I've never considered that before, but this really does. It's missing the armrest and probably the hidden lightsaber panels.
No, actually, I had the armrests and I took them off.
Ah,
they annoyed me.
I see.
And this is about as old as Diana is, I swear, the chair.
No, I'm actually surprised that this desk is not Han Solo frozen in carbonite. That would be amazing. That. No, so guys, for those of you not familiar with me, my name is Roberto Blake. I'm a creative entrepreneur, YouTuber, and all-around gearhead and gadget guy. You know what? If I had thought about it, I wouldn't have left my bag downstairs, because then I could literally just start pulling up all the gadgets and gear and show them the stuff that I walk around with.
Hang on, you just keep talking.
Okay, so yeah, I think Chris is actually going to get that. So yeah, I am a YouTube creator. For those of you who care about such things, because I know it's the YouTuber-y world, 250,000 plus subscribers. Started doing that about 4 years ago. My stuff is around creative entrepreneurship, so if you're a fan of people like my friend Tutvid and Nathaniel Dodson, or people like Gary Vaynerchuk, who I've known for a while now, then you probably would dig my channel. But I also like to talk about gear, technology, smartphones, and I practice the rule of two. I have my iPhone and I have my Android, and they battle it out for my attention. So we've got all of that.
I have my iPhone.
Yep. and I'm here to answer any questions you guys have. But Chris brought up that I am a gearhead and a gadget guy, and part of the reason he brought that up is because I've got some goodies here with me. So Chris, you know that we were talking about like shotgun microphones and audio gear earlier?
Uh-huh.
Like this bad boy is a Sennheiser dual stereo microphone. And so for people who are into YouTube stuff, this is really nice. And then feel that out, man. That's like almost completely full metal, like instead of a plasticky body.
And you've dropped it a few times.
Yeah, but it can take a hit. Like, so that's the good thing about it.
Wow.
So, like, I'm rough on my gear, so build quality is important for those of you. A lot of you who are gadget nerds out there, you know how important build quality is. It's like, you know, something doesn't deserve a 5-star rating if it can't take a punch.
Always two there are. Those microphones, like, they forked at the road there.
Yeah. Two there are. Two. No more, no less.
Master and apprentice.
Master and apprentice. One to embody power, one to crave it. But really, more like one to be able to help you with your general and then with your peaking. But moving right along, the camera that I film YouTubery stuff with is the Panasonic Lumix GH5, which is for a Micro Four Thirds camera, which usually and mirrorless is supposed to be lighter. This thing is not. It's a tank. Chris, you want to feel how heavy that is?
Oh man, I'll just stick with my smartphone.
Right? Yeah, like this is really heavy, build quality is nice, and it's not cheap. Speaking of, well, you know what? Guys, I know I'm new here to the channel as far as being a guest, but I have a special request. I want to take a lot of your questions, and as usual, we're going to prioritize Super Chat questions. So here's the deal. You can ask me about pretty much anything that you want to know, whether it's tech related or YouTube related. You want to know how to go from 0 to 100,000 subscribers and you got a question about that? I can answer it. You want to know about how to build a YouTube channel that makes money online? I can answer that. You want to know about the tech, the gear, the video, the audio, the editing, the drones? I can answer it.
See, I don't think that, I mean, maybe this is just me. I just don't think the hardware is that important.
It is if it eliminates friction. The reason I prioritize hardware, Chris, is a combination of I not only want quality, but I want speed. I know how much you're a fan of simplicity. I'm tackling some pretty hard things, and sometimes my gear lets me do that. Primary example, do you know why I spent what is an absurd amount of money on this camera? I spent an absurd amount of money on this camera because I film myself doing speaking engagements on stage, and I film long format interviews that are about, like, you know, more or less an hour long. But I also film those in conditions that aren't ideal where I don't have a bunch of lights set up in the real world. So what I did was I got a camera that has no recording time limit and will not overheat in 4K video. And I can also set any frame rates I want up to 4K 60 frames per second on this camera. So that actually really was important to me to be able to have the options and the versatility and the timing. So I bought the tool that can pretty much do it. The only failing that this camera has is that because it's a Micro Four Thirds camera, it doesn't handle low light nearly as well as I would like, but it's serviceable on that one feature. But other than that, it is literally a perfect camera. So I paid for it so I can get everything I might need and just push record. And that's the reason I bought that. Now, with my smartphone, the problem is that I use my smartphone for so many other things, and the battery life to do some of those more complicated things, it would destroy the battery life, and then I wouldn't be able to do other things if I recorded with it. You know, and I get so many alerts because, as you said, I'm omnipresent in social media that it's just a problem. So, believe me, if I could literally do it with anything less than what I use in terms of gear, I would.
All right, they got a question there from Discord chat, just behind you. You get into Discord by being either a sub on Twitch or a patron.
Nice.
So the first one, it just scrolled off. Someone was, Michael was asking if you had any tips or suggestions for being a tech YouTuber.
Okay, so if you're going to be a tech YouTuber, you have to kind of decide on a couple of things. What tech do you specifically want to cover? What is your tech budget or allowance that you're setting yourself? Because realistically, going out and buying every new thing is not something you can do when you're just getting started. You just really can't. And I would say to take the things that you already have that you've bought and just start doing reviews of those for a couple of reasons. One, getting used to doing it and getting on camera is hard. You know about that, Chris. It's like, you know, getting used to that and like coming out of your shell when you're not used to it and you've never done it. It gets hard, and like, you know, despite doing it 1,000 times, sometimes it doesn't get any easier. So starting simple is probably the best option when you want to be a tech YouTuber. You have to decide whether you're going to do your stuff edited or not, whether you're going to do close-ups of the gear or not, because not everyone's style is the same. Not everybody wants to basically make a glorified product commercial with their reviews. Some people want to do other things. Some people want to do it vlog style. Some people want to do real world reviews, and I kind of actually I'm starting to like those. I'm starting to watch people use this like day in and day out in the real world like a regular human instead of doing it like a lab test. And so you just have to figure out, well, what's your angle and what makes you excited about the tech, and then make the videos that way. And you can do it simply. I think you still can do YouTube with just a smartphone, but I'm doing stuff that requires a little bit more than that, because I'm doing interviews and I'm doing speaking and I'm doing other things of that nature. Not to mention, I just like the challenge, because I like to pretend, make believe that I'm Spielberg sometimes. So I get fancy.
We've got another question then. This is from Notch Embracer, who obviously you would know sits on the side of embracing the notch with that handle.
Right on.
Do you believe that YouTube started the ad apocalypse to show their advertisers that they will stand with them whatever happens, even if they have to abandon their creators for a while?
No, I don't subscribe to that. Part of it is because I worked in traditional marketing and advertising in corporate America, and so I have some inside knowledge, and I've actually talked to brands, and I've talked to people on all sides, creators. I've worked with creators, brands, and YouTube in my capacity as a consultant, as a YouTube certified expert in 3 of the 4 certifications that they offer, and with the relationships I have with brands, tech companies, and also agencies, people who work in middle management and marketing and at firms and so on and so forth. And I've talked to everybody about this, and I've talked to YouTube about this. They didn't engineer the adpocalypse because, one, it's not in their own interest to do it, because they literally lost a ridiculous amount of money. Not to mention, you have to understand, it wasn't a YouTube adpocalypse. YouTubers were the most vocal. It was a Google adpocalypse. Podcasters who had Google ads on their website lost money too. Mobile app developers from the Google Play Store that had ads running within their stuff, they lost money too, because these businesses pulled their money out of Google AdWords. And I think that people forget that Google AdWords even predates YouTube as a appliance and as an ad delivery network. This was not something that Google and YouTube engineered. It's nowhere near in their best interest, and they didn't need to show advertisers they would stand with them. This was a leverage point, and actually there was some patent trolling involved with Eric Feinberg, because he wanted to use his machine learning appliance and have a patent, so that if Google tried to solve the problem, he thought he'd be in a position to sue them, which I think he grossly underestimated his adversary in that regard, and tried to leverage them. And he weaponized traditional media to accomplish it at a time when YouTube was at the focal point of media attention, because 6 weeks prior to the adpocalypse prior, we had controversy surrounding both PewDiePie and surrounding Shay Carl. And so there was a media cycle of negative press around YouTube that a competitor to Google with regard to artificial intelligence and ad management could leverage to engineer a situation that could get him acquired, or at least get him on the radar. So it was a money play, and it was also a media play for traditional media to attack YouTube as well, because the conglomerates that own those traditional media outlets also own other properties and assets and things that directly compete with the other businesses that Google has. So they're frenemies in that point, and they just wanted to make sure that their friend, the god that is Google, they wanted to make sure that they realized that they can bleed, because then they could get a better deal.
So we got another question. This is from Tony Yoon, who's also a patron, and I think a sub, but sometimes you'll see him in Discord chat. He's not there right now, but he says, care to critique Chris's current setup you see there?
So I dig the simplicity of Chris's current setup, and the lighting on me is not too harsh. It's not blinding to make direct eye contact with the lens, which is even a problem I run into with my big LED panel lights. So I actually dig Chris's overall setup, but what I dig more is the backdrop. I really am a fan of this office, and it's really interesting being on this side of it. So I am a fan of that. And again, I think that the best setup is anyone that eliminates friction for your current or best situation. There are friends of mine that still do YouTube on their smartphone, and I think it's practical for them. And like, there's sometimes their stuff is better than people who use much fancier equipment. And again, if I could ever get to a point of consistently getting exactly what I need, doing something like that, they make a perfect smartphone, I'll switch over.
And you kind of did-ish switch over, kind of?
Sometimes. Like, it's one of those, when I travel, I actually end up using my smartphones for the majority of my B-roll. And now I'm using actually my smartphones for the B-roll for when I do unboxings, because I can use my little Archon accessory to do a tabletop thing like the people who do cooking videos. That was the solution I came up with, and it was cheap. And I also use my like mobile gimbal. It was like $130.
See, I don't have a gimbal yet.
A gimbal for your smartphone can turn your smartphone like into a movie grade camera today. So I dig that.
I've seen a couple of good ones. I haven't.
The Zhiyun Crane Smooth Q is legit.
It's not one that has the app that you connect to it that's all flaky and stuff.
That's more of the DJI Osmo Mobile. The Zhiyun Crane is actually really good because I actually use them for my DSLR gimbal too, and I get to actually control it like a turret, and it's easy. It's so much fun. I get like I said, I get fancy sometimes, but for the mobile version of that, it's $130, and it's amazing, and it's easy to travel with too.
Deuce is Wild, who's a sub, asked the question. I did see it, but I'm glad I got screenshot there. It says, in one of your initial iPhone 10 videos, and this is a question to me, but this is something
maybe it's to me too.
I think you'll probably have feedback on as well. Before it was released, you said the iPhone 10 was an overpriced beta product. After using it, do you still stick by your statement? Absolutely.
I think that was directed at me because I said that.
Oh, you did? You said it then? I agree. I concur entirely. It is a beta product. It wasn't supposed to have shipped until next year. It was moved up.
So that's actually not even speculation on our part or opinion. It's actually a legitimate fact. Now it's an established fact.
But you don't. But it was so clearly obvious that this piece of junk was. The first two Apple Watches were a beta product. I am a proud owner of the Apple Watch Series 3, which is the finally a finished product. 3 generations later, it's a finished product. I bought the 2. I feel like a chump last year because, but now it's a finished product. Why? Because with the Samsung Gear and the Android things, we've been able to make and take calls independent of the phone. It was an actual, because if you're paying $300, $400 for something, why should it rely on your phone? Why should it be a phone accessory? But $300, $400 phone accessory doesn't matter. It still is.
No, the Series 3 is independent now.
No, it isn't. You still need an iPhone to use it.
You still need you still need to own an iPhone, yes. But you can leave your iPhone at home and it's fine.
But I have to own more money. Yeah, I don't know.
Unlike the Samsung Galaxy Gear, which you technically don't need to own a phone.
Technically, I don't need to own anything.
Yeah, I mean to make use of. I mean to make use of the thing. That's what I'm getting at. So I still stand by both of our statements that the iPhone 10 is an overpriced beta product. Because here's the thing. The features that were offered in the iPhone 10, there was no functional reason based on the A11 Bionic chip for the iPhone 8, which I currently own, as well as the 8 Plus, which both Chris and I own. There's no reason for the A11 chip's features and functionality that couldn't have offered core functionality for everything else that it does. And even with the notch, there's no reason that camera, there's nothing about the iPhone 10 where they couldn't have offered that true depth camera in the iPhone 8 or the 8 Plus. If anything, from a marketing standpoint, they could have put it in the 8 Plus just to differentiate the 8 beyond form factor, right? So the thing is, the true depth camera and Face ID, we could have had that in the 8 and the 8 Plus anyway. The A11 chip allows for that. The current build form factor is not so radically different. So that was something they could have done anyway. If we wanted an OLED display, even if it wasn't bezel-less, Apple could have been using OLED displays years ago, just like Samsung and other competitors. So that wasn't some feature that had to be reserved for the iPhone 10. So why not give it to us in the 8 and the 8 Plus? So follow me with this thread. Animojis. You don't need the true depth camera for Animojis. Snapchat and Instagram have proven that you don't need that. They could have given Animojis to everybody, and that could just be software based at this point. You don't need it. The accuracy of the true depth camera helps, but iPhone cameras are good enough to do that without it needing to be radically different. And remember, I stated earlier, with the A11 chip, there's no reason not to have the true depth camera in the 8 and the 8 Plus. And if you, for marketing leverage, wanted to put it only in the 8 Plus to sell the more expensive phone, then fine. Right? So all of a sudden, from a functionality standpoint, we've already eliminated everything that the iPhone 10 has that's unique, and we've justified that it could have went to the 8 and the 8 Plus. The only reason the iPhone 10 exists is for a design refresh and to see how much we could charge people for a phone and how much they will pay. And the reason it was released in 2017 instead of 2018 was to increase revenue and to jump market shares for fourth quarter and to increase projections for Q1 2018, which is a business move in terms of marketing and leverage and marketing perception to manipulate stock price. So that's legit. That's it, because from a technology standpoint, every feature that you love about the iPhone 10, which are good features, there's no reason not to put it in the 8 or into the 8 Plus. There's no technical difference because the A11 chip and the camera is not so radical that they couldn't fit into this. The only difference, besides the screen, which they could have given us anyway, we all know that giving us a different screen doesn't matter, and they gave us glass backing on everything for the wireless charging. So they could have given us OLED regardless, if that was the answer. So it was that they wanted to have a bezel-less design now, because that is what the new standard is bezel-less design, like the Google Pixel XL2 and the Samsung Galaxy 8.
Sorry,
this one's
that
mine.
was yours, not
this
mine.
One's mine.
Mine.
Yep. So there's that factor. So it was a design aesthetic choice that compromises functionality. They also weren't sure that we would radically depart from the old design and from Touch ID, so that's why they still launched the 8 and the 8 Plus, because why couldn't you just consolidate the product line if that's the case? Because they weren't sure how it would work, and because it's a premium product, not to mention you saw that they had production issues. Having production issues indicates that this is a beta product, because if it was not, if you had this complete, because why didn't they have production issues for the 8? Because it's a fully realized phone. It's the final version of the true realized phone that Steve Jobs envisioned. The 10 is something radically different than his original vision and departs from it. So now we're finally seeing a true post Steve Jobs Apple. And that's, and I don't think that's speculation or opinion on my part. I think that you literally have to look at it in black and white. That this still doesn't deviate from what he held in his hand the last time he was alive. The 10 does.
Okay, we've got a couple super chats here. One, Jack Daniels says, "Great show, guys."
Great name, Jack.
Thank you. I agree on both parts. There. And then Tony Unit asked in the super chat, "How sharp is your jank detection meter?" And this is probably more a question for you, because they know I'm like spot on.
Mm-hmm.
Like sloppiness in design or sloppiness in terms of execution with animations.
I was a graphic designer for the better part of my career, and also a studio photographer. And I'm also somebody who worked day in and day out with programmers and developers. Like, my sense of, like, jank, it's like, I'm, like, let me put it like this and everything like that. The line would be and everything like that, from you to me would be, it's like, it's the opposite of the Vader line. It's like, Chris might be more forgiving than I am. Like, I'm Emperor Roberto. I think Chris is more forgiving.
You think I'm more forgiving than you are? Really?
Do you want me to lean into the problems with the UI and UX with the 10 in depth? Because it's like, I'll get vicious.
Oh, I'm sure. No, trust me.
Unlimited power!
That's kind of how I feel, but I felt that way pretty much from the beginning. In fact, on Tuesday, this was something that was going on in Discord chat behind you. They're going to be funding.
Johnny Ive.
He phoned it in.
Johnny Ive needs to really explain defending as a design choice the notch with a straight face, and I dare him to do it, because the first thing every designer learns and is beaten into your face when you go to design school is that form follows function. Form and aesthetic is secondary to function. I explained functionally that they could have delivered everything the iPhone 10 did in this form factor without a compromise. They used aesthetic choice, because I went through the comments of my own iPhone 10 video, and you know what the reality is? Almost everyone without exception, except for a handful of people who are coming from an older iPhone, are picking it for aesthetic and design choice because they're effing bored and they have $1,200 burning a hole in their pocket and they're bored. That's it. They're bored. They're bored with how this looks, and they want to be fancy, and they want to differentiate themselves as someone who had $1,200 to burn instead of someone who had $800 or $900 to burn.
He has no, but yeah, exactly. No, but here's the thing. I don't think you watched all my rant videos, but does he not sound like me?
Form follows function.
Does he not sound
Functionally,
like me?
everything in the iPhone 10 could have been delivered in the 8 and the 8 Plus. Every single thing.
So we'll go down this rabbit hole. We could for hours. But actually on Tuesday, I'm going to be doing a live video. We're going to try to see if the community is going to fund an iPhone 10 for me to get a hold of and review. Because I'm not going to do it. They're going to do it.
So here's the thing.
You're going to do it.
If you've enjoyed the stream so far, or you've ever enjoyed TLDR, I have an ask. Just throw $2 in Super Chat right now. If you've ever gotten anything out of this and you've been a fan and you've enjoyed it, just throw $2 into the Super Chat. It's coffee money, but every little bit helps in getting us the opportunity to see Chris lean into and rip apart this travesty of design failure of UI UX.
Like, you can do
it's
it
like
today.
Apple, the roast of Apple. And I'll tell you what, my contribution will be, I will do the most baller thumbnail as ever been done. I will literally sit there and reverse engineer PewDiePie's clickbait cringe thumbnails just for you, buddy. If we can get the roast of Apple going.
Oh man.
If we can get the roast of Apple going, it's like I'll definitely sit there and Photoshop for a good minute. And I am a Photoshop god.
We've got, I believe it. Certainly I'm not. Chirag.
Just watch a PewDiePie tutorial. He's actually really good.
I can imagine. I mean, if he gets traffic for some reason. Hey Roberto, I just checked out your channel. I see a lot of business videos. Do you think there's a large audience for business videos on YouTube, particularly related to finance rather than entrepreneurship?
Oh, this one is super fascinating to me. It's like, if you're a fan of Dave Ramsey and you also understand the importance of fiscal discipline, I think that there is a huge niche potentially in YouTube for that, because first of all, you'll attract almost everybody who is a full-time YouTuber, which you'd be surprised at what that number might look like. You'll attract almost everyone who's a full-time YouTuber. Whether they subscribe or not, they will watch, because there is a lack of financial knowledge there, and people are becoming painfully aware of it in the age of the adpocalypse. And so a lot of YouTubers are seeking out business advice. That's where a lot of my coaching has increased, actually, with regard to it being YouTubers versus just entrepreneurs or artists and things of that. I have a client that's a fine painter of mine that is getting business coaching. So I think that the financial side of this, because I get questions about like the tax side for YouTube and things of that nature, or okay, they've got disposable cash, should they start looking at doing an SEP or an IRA and things like that? And I direct them to a lot of the financial education channels. Hank Green is actually backing a channel called The Financial Diet that has, I think, like a 250,000 or 300,000 subscribers, something of that nature. I see a small up-and-coming YouTuber that's been growing pretty quickly, Dollar Dude. The financial education space in YouTube is growing, and it's still not saturated, so I think you have a really strong thing that you can do there, and I think it's great.
I do that all the time. I tell people, don't buy technology. It's just a waste of money. Well, I'm just saying, I just save money.
I just claim it on my taxes.
Well, yeah.
Oh, thank you for the $2 in Super Chat, guys. We appreciate the coffee money. Justin Miller, thank you so much.
This is turning
Better
into a
said.
telethon.
Thanks so much. Let's do it, iPhone X. It's like, yeah, welcome to the Chris Pirillo Locker Gnome Telethon with special guest host, fundraiser, Roberto Blake. Yeah, if you've ever enjoyed this, again, I want to get this roast of the iPhone 10. I want the roast of Apple.
That's Tuesday.
Yeah,
we'll get it started now. We'll get it started now. We got another $2.
We're not. It's Tuesday.
Craig,
I hate to burst everybody's bubble.
Craig Backdar, thanks Roberto.
For the support.
Also, iPhone 10 fun. See?
Nope, that's Tuesday. Come back Tuesday, Chirag. Lumpy, do you notice the
$20 for the iPhone 10?
Hang on, Roberto, can you see? Look behind you. Do you notice that avatar?
Varghese Ayadel, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, for the iPhone 10, $20.
Nope, not today. I hate to tell everybody, it's not going to count. I mean, it's wonderful. You basically enabled this amazing lunch that we had. We had a brunch, so thank you for helping with that. We had some pho, and Jedi enjoyed her dish. Thank you very much.
No, the pho was actually from...
No, it wasn't, because we're in the hole.
It was from Fuco last week.
Oh, Fucho?
Oh, yeah.
Chris is hustling. I'm not hustling. I'm saying come back again on Tuesday, because that's the only numbers we're counting.
Come back Tuesday, and then he's got to count it.
I don't want to. Hey, let me put it this way. I'm trying to be an impediment to actually getting the iPhone 10.
I'm not having it. I'm not having
then,
it.
Roberto, I will see you on Tuesday.
You will.
I will see you virtually. Oh,
we got it's
Tuesday.
like Chris. I think we've literally already done $50 for the roast of Apple.
No, not quite there yet, but
something like that. It's getting there. It's getting there. So guys, we appreciate. I know Chris appreciates the super chats. I'm having fun. Oh, more to come. Eugene Tam, thank you so much. Rob Madden, thank you so much.
It's not going to count, everybody.
Champ.
I'm not going to repeat it. I've already said it 3 times.
Okay.
Hang on. Wait. Let me check the channel name. Oh yeah, it says Chris Pirillo. Yeah.
Oh, so you want a discussion with Telos of Tech? Chris, have you been familiar with Telos of Tech and his videos on YouTube?
I don't watch tech videos.
Okay. Well, I mean, I admire what he's doing because the thing
I
is,
don't.
Well, no, it's fine that you don't watch tech videos. It's aside from a few of my homies, I don't watch YouTuber advice videos.
Right.
But I've started to though because of some of my homies, and also I'm looking at some of the newcomers to the space, and I admire them. I'm trying to give them some advice, some friendly advice, not telling them what to do, but I want to help. I know that you're a big fan of advocating for creators. You did a whole conference about
very
it.
Much so.
So, but I would encourage you to just take a peek at what Telosive Tech is trying to do, and he actually has a network beyond tech of other videos. They have Telosive Reviews, and he's a young dude. I think you might find a kindred spirit. I would just encourage you to just check him out and just see what he's about.
Cool.
I think you might be curious.
Someone said he's a full defense lawyer for Apple.
What?
He practically is in a way, but I've also seen him criticize them, and he also almost switched to the Galaxy S8 at one point. He was like, "There's only one thing that really stopped him."
So we've got a super chat from James Ikes. He says, "Have you ever heard of Michael Wall? Great financial advice, and also skip roasting the coffee. Let's roast the 10."
I love it. I have not heard of Mr. Walsh, but I would definitely or Wall. Is it Wall or Walsh?
Wall.
Okay, so clearly I haven't heard of him.
No.
But I definitely be willing to look into it. There's a lot of opportunity for those of you who are in the YouTube space where you want to do tech, financial advice, creativity, anything you want to do. There's a lot of opportunity still. I think people are scared and think YouTube is saturated or that it's game over.
But see, I've done so many videos in this channel. I hear you, but this is the reason why I had to set up multiple channels, because I want to do. I mean, I do this normally. The live video, this kind of variety show, happens in another channel.
Yeah,
and right.
I have notifications.
No,
I have notifications.
Yeah, no, I know. I know you're on board. But I thought about doing dedicated, creator-driven, entrepreneur-driven, answering questions-driven, but I almost have to set up a third damn channel for it.
Just collab with somebody and be a recurring special.
We've got a third channel. The old Vlogger Fair channel is probably going to get,
absorbed by something else.
Like the Star Wars Radar, it was Vader Fun for a while. Now it's Star Wars Radar. So actually, I don't want to have so many damn YouTube channels.
No, I think that's definitely a thing.
But it's a problem because then people don't know where to get to the advice that they're looking to get.
So I think that I think a channel with something like that also functions as a podcast that you distribute in iTunes. That's what my advice would be, because I'm with you. My YouTube channel covers so many things. A couple of you looked at it, and I appreciate you looking at, like, and subscribe. But because it's diversity on my channel of content because it's built around my personal brand. I'm showing you everything I have to offer.
Yeah, but that messed me up.
But no, you're not wrong. There's diminishing returns on that. There's algorithm things that I have to fight against on that. But I just take the hit, and my business model facilitates it. What I am doing though is for this new venture for Awesome Creator Academy is giving it a dedicated YouTube channel where I can focus strictly on entrepreneurship. And the business model that I have around that with the courses and with the mentoring program and with the consulting and the coaching.
See, I think that's the way we're going to be doing it.
Yeah, so that's so I'm more than willing to help give you some advice around that and show you under the hood of what I'm doing. So that's something I'm looking at. But then for my actual media company, and you notice that most YouTubers have been doing it forever. A lot of them are now just starting to spin off their media companies. Mine's always been in the shadows anyway. And I've also worked behind the scenes on other people's content as a media company. But now I'm going to build a channel around my media company. But then that content is radically different than my personal brand and radically different than the other venture.
That's kind of like, no, I see the Star Wars question, but I'll get to it in a second. Hence the reason I've been doing events is because of the barrier to entry.
Yeah.
It's a value add. I just assume continue to do those types of events as a dovetail to the online content stuff.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I know, I hear you. Like, people don't, they're
They're-
short-sighted. They think YouTube is it. I'm like, no.
No.
It's far more complex.
Like, no, I could, realistically, and again, I dabble a little bit into my channel, but I'll just I'll throw out numbers just because I know they matter to people in context, and because, like, I don't mind the transparency. I just think that numbers don't lie, but they can be misleading in the story that they tell.
Exactly.
And that's why I don't like. And that's why I don't like when people do these videos around how much money they make on YouTube or what their check is, because I think it ends up misleading people, because what no one will tell you is that there's no normal in YouTube. Chris, there's no normal in YouTube. Everything, it sounds hokey to say everything's an individual journey, but for the tech people out there, what I'll tell you is this: the variables. There are too many variables for people to naively consider that there's any normalcy to a YouTube experience, a YouTube journey, or that there's a normal view to subscriber ratio or any of those things. Those averages are specific to genre and niche, let alone personality and individual, let alone the demographics of their audience, which is all a unique diaspora of the 1.6 billion users on YouTube. So as far as consumers.
Yeah.
So then you have that multiplied by the 50 million creators. And yeah, it's actually that many. Matt Gillen from Frederator, well, formerly from Frederator, he's now Little Monster Media. He managed the Frederator. He was the director of programming over there. Tremendous network of channels. So he had access to ridiculous amounts of data. He did a case study on over 1,000 YouTube channels, 2,000 data points, and it's this really beautiful case study over on TubeFilter. And he's done more than one. He cracked the algorithm in a very specific way, and like there's best practices, but here's the problem. Even if you had all that information and you literally had his blueprint for doing well with the algorithm, it doesn't mean that the nature of your channel and your audience, that you have an execution that can take advantage of any of those things, or that you have the money to put into the resources or the effort that, like, and some things you won't do.
See, I feel I hit that specifically. I mean, I'm not. It's been a great community. Don't get me wrong, but I feel that I unfortunately am the odd man out with a lot of the stuff that everyone wants to talk about. Because number one, with hardware, I'm not a gadget guy. I'm streamlined. I don't want to have this stuff. I want Star Wars stuff around me. I don't want a camera.
For people like you, I'm building out some content around literally just doing everything with your smartphone. Because again, I'm convinced people can build an empire with just this, and that's it. And the thing is, I also am doing that not just for young people, but because there are people who are 50 or 60 that are retiring or getting pushed out, unfortunately, from their job or their business, and they don't know how to operate in the new world, and I need to help them. Yeah. Just with this.
So Eugene Tyam came in with another super chat. Yeah, he says this for the guest spot on the set. Need a bigger set to include everyone in the video.
I think we could squeeze you in.
No, we could. I've done it before. In fact, Jerry Berg, Barnacle Nerdgasm. Yep. He's going to be over here on Friday. Sorry, I'm checking.
Oh, sweet. I love Jerry.
And yeah, no, Jerry and I have always done very well together with videos, but I can't set up the camera the same way that we've done it in the past. So I'm going to ask him to bring over lighting because I don't really have any lighting. And we may have to do. Oh,
he'll take care of it. He's good on that.
It generally is. I wish I had a better environment apart from just this area. This is all I have, and it only works for one person.
Yeah, no, I recently changed some of my aesthetic on my channel, but also because like I went to the IKEA store and fell in love with a lot of pieces. It's one of those things where if I were in a serious relationship again, it's like the IKEA store would have been interesting because that's always an interesting test of a relationship. But
you heard the song, right? Jonathan Colton. Yeah.
Yep.
IKEA.
So like I would have, but I changed my set recently as far as my bookcase, because the way mine works is I have my main desk similar to yours, but I'm instead of being literally behind my desk, I'm in front of it. And then I have my other set piece that is my bookcase. But now I also have another set piece that is my smaller laptop desk. And now I also have my product table, which I'm not on camera for, but that's where the B-roll happens. So, I'm familiar with when you have a limitation because, again, that's my home office. That's like my main room.
Right. And I don't want to clutter it up with tech. So I've got this area down here that I've sat down, and actually I think this angle works. I just don't think Jerry's going to be very comfortable on the floor for an hour.
Aside from
I'll just be honest.
From two panel lights,
I don't get comfortable after an hour.
Aside from two panel lights, literally everything that's in my bag, including this tripod, is literally everything for my setup at home too, with the exception of for the product reviews I have a slider, but that's it. It's just 2 panel lights and everything in that bag.
See, I'm not into producing commercials.
Yeah.
Like as you put, I think you actually put a finer point on it. I mean, all these tech videos that I see, they're just commercials.
Yeah, I'd almost rather some of those I dig a little bit, but they're mostly commercials and I'm bored with it now. I like the ones that are becoming vlogs now. I like the ones that it's like voiceover B-roll of showing you using the phone in a day in the life in your living room, at the store. I like that. I like, literally seeing how a family uses the phone at the beach to take pictures of the kids, more than it being in a lab.
Right.
Yeah. So, because again, it's context. It's like, I think we've gotten away in YouTube sometimes from the reality of the fact that YouTube was normal people, regular people, not celebrities, not stars, not companies. YouTube was regular people having the ability to broadcast at scale. And now it's people not trying to be normal anymore and live their life and do things and just share it, or just share their expertise or do whatever. People are overproducing and manufacturing their thing. Now, granted, good audio makes an experience better for a viewer.
Of course.
Good lighting makes a better experience for a viewer. Yeah. And that's where I kind of draw the line. And also, like, your stuff not being totally messy or whatever. Yeah. Like, because that's distracting.
It's production value, right? But see,
I draw the line at eliminate distractions.
Right.
But after you overcook it past that.
Right. It's the law of diminishing returns. So that's exactly my benchmark, or I guess the baseline is, does anybody complain about the production? Yes or no. If no one complains about it, I've done my job. So, I've tweaked lighting. In fact, these recent, I went from warm to cool.
I like these, but I would have liked these even just for you for working conditions.
Yeah, in fact, you can see there's a little gel that's hanging.
Yep.
The reason why is because the light bounces off and then back onto the shelves to illuminate the
See,
the items.
I like that. Even for a good example of the photography of the Pixel 2, like taking some shots of all of your beautiful Star Wars memorabilia, so much. I think that it's a good test for something like the Pixel, just to be able to do product shots with that.
Oh yeah, easily.
Yeah.
Notch Embracer asks another question: why does Disney ask 65% of the first in every cinema for the first 4 weeks of every showing of Star Wars: The Last Jedi? That's hard.
Leverage. They have the leverage to do that because they know that it's a film that will do really well, and that no matter what they ask for, if they were going to really squeeze, they should be asking for 70-75%, and they'd get it. But they're trying not to be monsters, but they'd get it, because if you don't have Star Wars: The Last Jedi in your theater, and Christmas week, if you don't have that, and your competitor does, you will lose all the foot traffic, all the concessions. You will it will be a loss, and you will not want to take that hit. It is better to get 25% of what will for 2017 be the highest grossing film of the year, let alone probably of all time. I'm predicting that it will break another record. I believe that. The hype is real.
I believe it, because if they brought Ryan on to write the trilogy, that's going to
the hype
come
around
after,
that is it's that good. If they made that deal, if they made that commitment, they locked Ryan in for 3 more films. They don't do that. They don't make those kind of deals. They don't make those kind of deals. That means that they're that impressed with what they have, and that's not an accident, and they don't make mistakes. They're not Fox. For those of you who don't understand the reference, Fox didn't believe in Star Wars, and they lost the royalties on the merchandising, which, as Chris will tell you,
it was a very expensive mistake.
It's a horrible mistake.
So I've got a good question, and Chirag asks the lumpy avatar there. Well, first of all, I want you to talk about your podcast, but Joe Tashi also had a question that's kind of related. He says, I have an idea for an interview. Do you have any tips? And I do. I have many tips for interviews. My number one tip for an interview is listen. It's more important to listen than it is to ask questions, because in many cases you're talking to the person you're interviewing because you believe they have something interesting to say. Let them lead. Let the person who is you're interviewing lead, and they will tell you what the next question is going to be, instead of you having in your head, these are the little points that you want to hit.
Or feel them out. I think it's a balance of feeling them out, because I also think that prior to an interview, ask your audience what it is that they want from that potential guest, or what they would want asked, to get a sense of knowing your audience, because you're trying to provide value for them. But also, I've noticed that there's some guests that they're coming on shows or interviews or podcasts, but you have to feel out where they are today and what they're going through, because sometimes they might need you to carry them a little bit, just depending on who it is. Because I've experienced that there are some of my guests that are so knowledgeable, but they need help bringing it out, or they're in their shell, or they haven't done a lot of interviews. So one-on-one, they're great when you're talking to them and it's personal and it's private. But then if they have the pressure of knowing this is going out, sometimes they get in their own head. And so you got to learn how to work with and feel people out. Because sometimes in an interview, all I want to do is let them go, and I just let them go. But other times, I've had to carry them.
Right, but that becomes painfully obvious usually within the first minute of talking to someone, whether or not you as the interviewer are going to drive the interview versus just let it kind of like go and flow. Because I think the best interviews aren't interviews; they turn out to be more like conversations.
Yep.
And it's frustrating sometimes being a guest on an interview type of podcast or a show, when it is painfully obvious that the person who's interviewing you is very inexperienced.
Right. Because
then you feel like you're effectively taking it over to make a good piece of content for them.
Right. And that, as someone who's been a guest on podcasts, I think I've like them maybe been interviewed maybe 150 times, one for every of the original Pokemon minus one. Like nerd reference there. This community loves that though, right? So I've experienced that. I've been on both ends of it. When I'm a guest, I try to be as giving and as gracious as possible, and to also really make sure that I'm providing value for the community, and to make sure that I'm also just being very aware of my host, and what will be a good experience for them, and what makes them look good. Because as much as you want to give value, sometimes if you're a guest, there's the risk of overpowering or overshadowing the host. And if you're an excitable person, like I sometimes I get really excited and then I overtalk people or interrupt people. Gary Vaynerchuk has the same issue.
He sat in this chair once, by the way.
Yeah, I know. Like that's I feel very honored and very humbled and everything like that. But it's like you don't have to tell us which one did better and everything like that. It's Gary. It's Gary. So I'm gonna have
John
to take
Prosser sat there too.
like it's Gary. Me and John are gonna take our L's and we're gonna be happy because it's Gary and everything like that. But it's like, but if me and Gary have a like assembling hardware challenge or something like that, then I'm gonna take the W.
There you go.
It's like W's. So the
interviews. Sorry, I derailed.
But yeah, no, interviews. So advice on interviews. Don't bombard your person with questions, but have questions so that you never feel like you're filling dead air. It's okay sometimes to give them a heads up on bullet point topics that you know that they play to their strengths. So do homework on your the guest that you're interviewing and let them shine.
And not just on a Wikipedia page, because it's obvious when someone's read a Wikipedia page when they go to interview me, and I'm like, wow, that's wildly outdated information. It's not even accurate. I'm going to let you tell everybody where your podcast is, but I have to make a production point. Ben Z98 says Chris should use the wide-angle lens so two people fit into the frame for TLDR. This is a wide-angle lens.
It's the placement. It's a wide-angle lens, but then with the wide-angle lens, you also have to accommodate for a certain amount of distance with lighting for yourself, so that one, the reflectiveness is appropriate. Also, it's not blinding for you to make eye contact with the camera. That's super important. So even with the wide-angle lens, there's issues there with the closeness issue. Then it's a matter of how your tripod setup works or doesn't, the limited area of the environment, and then also you have to accommodate the microphone if you're not laved because of the closeness issue as well. And so the closeness issue sometimes diminishes the ability of the wide-angle lens to serve. Then you have to deal with the actual logistics of with putting people into frame. Do you have enough physical space to accommodate the chairs comfortably for the beginning of the end to the end of the frame? And the thing is, when you have a set piece that was originally designed primarily for a one-man show, augmenting it to accommodate an interview is problematic on multiple levels. So if you physically saw this setup, it wouldn't be a question. It's just something that it was not intended to originally do, and one simple hardware change will not be enough to accommodate it. It would require a completely different setup, and it would require at least maybe 30 minutes to an hour of prep, and that's not something that we were going to be able to accommodate.
No way. The thing I want you to say is where your podcasts are, or podcast is. I think you have more than one.
So I have a podcast, but then I have an anchor call-in show.
Oh, okay.
So my podcast is the Create Something Awesome Today podcast, which you can find in iTunes and SoundCloud just by typing it in or typing in my name, Roberto Blake. And also, if you type into my name, Roberto Blake, into iTunes, you'll find the Ask for Awesome show, which is my call-in show that I do through Anchor FM. So I do call-ins. What I need to do better about that show, though, is I need to do better about saving everything as episodes, because I spread out the call-ins so much that I end up missing the window for making a seamless episode. I need to get better at that, but I do take the call-ins on it. Anchor is so amazing. It's why I say that you can do so much with a smartphone, because with Anchor, anyone can do a podcast literally with their smartphone, and the microphone that's in the phone itself is good enough, or you could use your AirPods or whatever, or you could use a lav, and hashtag not sponsored by Anchor FM. Not today, anyway.
I am. So
Not today.
Head over to anchor.fm. No, but I have call-ins, and there were maybe 3 or 4 that I could actually use, and I did them in a podcast, hoping that would encourage others to call into the show, and I haven't received one call.
I also share out the stuff in Twitter, because Anchor is native to Twitter, and I found that helps, and I also hashtag the thing that I'm sharing out from that.
Right.
And so that ends up being the post for that. So that's my growth hacking thing. Those are the little tweaks that I do that then encourage people to do things. And sometimes I'll even use the hashtag for Ask Me Anything, AMA, and that helps.
See, I just don't think anybody's listening to the podcast. Maybe 1 or 2 people.
You'd be surprised,
That's my
though.
feeling.
I
don't know.
You'd be surprised, and again, those things sometimes slow traction on that and things of that nature. But whenever I actually am active on Anchor, I can get into the leaderboard, and you'd be surprised. Like, you start to think no one's listening, and again, it's just a matter of repetition and showing up. And the way I use Anchor is, and again, this is why I say that sometimes I end up saving it as an episode to be distributed, is because I do it organically enough throughout the day when I'm doing it that it doesn't feel like a chore to me, and it doesn't feel like something produced. It's literally just responding, and sometimes all I do is, if I don't get the
people listen to the podcast.
There
you go. And if I don't get the call-ins on the podcast, I just talk about what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, that's effectively what I've done.
And that's why I didn't make it. I made it a call-in show, and I made it Ask for Awesome, meaning that I can talk about anything. I can talk about Game of Thrones, I can talk about Star Wars, and I can talk about business. I have the Create Something Awesome Today podcast to talk about creative entrepreneurship and to interview people. So I can do the podcast solo, or I can have a guest. But the call-in show I did so it could be casual.
But I guess I'm casual all the way around. But the thing I think I run into a hurdle with is that people listen to me live on YouTube or after YouTube. I give them like 3 hours worth of me a day, almost, it seems. Well, maybe not that much, but at least an hour. Yeah. And so it's just like by the time they get around to the podcast, they already burn out on Pirillo.
I don't believe that entirely, to be honest. Like, but that might be my personal experience. But like, a lot of people ask me about that because of saturation in anything, and I think it's about supply and demand. And the thing is, I don't make the assumption of that, because I used to make that assumption. That's why I didn't think daily would be a practical thing in YouTube. And the thing is, I found out that I wasn't burning out my subs. The issue with my view to subscriber ratio was and continues to be that I'm doing individual things to help. Like, one person in my audience has a question, I make a dedicated video, and there might be 5,000 people out of the 250,000 subscribers that solves a problem for today or resonates with them, and I'm fine with that. It doesn't look good as a YouTuber with $250,000 to have that. Like, sorry, not $250,000. Sorry, I don't. No. 250,000 subs next year. 250,000 subs to have that ratio. But that's because the difference is that people are normalizing entertainment-based YouTubers and vlogging and personality-driven channels versus things that are subject matter limited but may not be niche. Like a Star Wars channel that's only about Star Wars could have a good view-to-subscriber ratio, but I have plenty of friends who are Star Wars YouTubers who don't have a good view-to-subscriber ratio because maybe their angle on Star Wars is slightly different than what might be the mainstream. But the thing is, for the people who are seeking that, just because it is less people doesn't mean that they're less important.
Super chat question.
Okay, super chat question, but I also have to point out to Ben's98. I guess I'm doing some education again. He says, podcast is good, but Patreon as a platform, nah. Okay, hang on. 2 different things. Completely radically different things. Patreon is...
He's talking about the podcast that you put on Patreon.
Oh, okay, that's when I take the TLDR MP3 and give it to patrons. Well, then he doesn't have to listen to it, he's watching it. So what I'm saying is that you don't need to have a Patreon account to get a podcast. I upload a podcast for free titled Chris Pirillo.
When he said it overheats his phone, that's all.
It doesn't make any sense because he's conflating the two.
Okay, but I mean, it's just he's framing it wrong. He's, like you said, he's conflating the two things. It's that it has an effect on like his tech, which means that that's a hardware issue. It's not your podcast.
I don't know what the question was
It's
then.
when he's listening to it on Patreon.
The Patreon app?
You don't. No, hang on. You get an RSS feed. Patreon gives you an RSS feed to put into your feed reader.
Well, whatever tool he's using, whatever tool he's using. See, it's a tech problem. It's a tech problem.
Okay.
But maybe he wants help with that tech problem, so we'll get to that.
I wanted to make sure that it was clearly understood that they were separated.
Okay.
Because you don't need to listen to it on Patreon.com.
Right.
What's up, Chris and Roberto? I have a problem. This is Tana Does Tech with tagging.
Hi, Tana.
With all kinds of terms, but they don't rank well on TubeBuddy.
Okay, so you're talking about the YouTube keyword ranking system, and you're talking about TubeBuddy as a third-party app and appliance that people can use. So, by the way, if you're trying to be a YouTuber, go to tubebuddy.com/awesome, use code Roberto's Buddy and get 20% off. But here's the deal with that. Well, with TubeBuddy, most people, it's not a matter of using it wrong. It's that I say that when you're doing YouTube or anything, it's not about right or wrong. It's about a 1 to 10 effectiveness scale. Most people who are doing keywords and tags in YouTube, when they do certain things, they're doing it and they're somewhere between a 1 and a 3. Even when it comes to tagging, and again, I'm not throwing shade, but I'm going to tell you, like, PewDiePie is doing like on a scale of 1 to 10, he's probably doing like a 2 or a 3 with his tagging. Jacksepticeye is like at a 4. And then there are people like Daryl Eves who are going to do a 9 or a 10. And so on and so forth. And the reason I bring that up is that even though he's the biggest YouTuber, it's not because of keyword ranking. People don't search for PewDiePie videos. People already are subscribed and distributed, and YouTube keeps pumping it out because it already has traction. If you're a small YouTuber, you need to master keyword tagging up to a certain point because you need to siphon from search. You can't do that if you're typing, your keyword is iPhone versus the keyword being iPhone 10 overheating issue, iPhone 10 camera test, iPhone 10 4K 60 frames per second. That's a proper keyword for the iPhone. If you just type in iPhone or iPhone 10, you're not going to rank for that because it's a general term and everybody might be using it and it's saturated. Specificity is the key. So you have to think about, if I were trying to find something in a filing cabinet, or I'm trying to find something at work in an archive, how would I find that? If you were in a card catalog, for those of you old enough to remember that, how would I classify something in order for it to make sense? If I wanted the movie like Sleepless in Seattle, I wouldn't just type in Seattle. And I wouldn't just type in Sleepless. I would type in Sleepless in Seattle Netflix, Sleepless in Seattle film. You know, so that's what you would, Sleepless in Seattle 1991. Like, I would type in something really specific. I would type in who starred in Sleepless in Seattle. So you have to think about tags as, how do I use a phrase that answers a problem? What would I type into search if I was trying to get to this thing? And you're not typing in one word. Nobody types like one word into search. It's nonsense. We all have something specific we want to do. I don't type Star Wars into search. I type in Star Wars top 10 Sith Lords. I type in Darth Bane Rule of 2. I type in Darth Bane's victims, like Anakin Skywalker versus Darth Vader. I don't just type in one word, or I don't type in usually like a 2-word phrase. You type in something much more detailed. And so when you're tagging in YouTube for keywords, you have to be specific as possible. That's the real answer.
All right, I'm going to unfortunately cut everybody off. I know Liz kept reposting the question, but it was a long and complicated question. Good question, but we'll have to shelve it. So Roberto, Thank you. I'm gonna trade you places.
Yeah. Guys, thank you so much. Don't forget, every little bit helps with Super Chat, and come back Tuesday to contribute funding to the roast of Apple and the iPhone 10. Please do that. Chris definitely appreciates it. I want to see the video. And again, I promise you, I will make a beautiful thumbnail for the roast of the Apple iPhone 10. So, guys, stay awesome. You guys want to check me out? YouTube.com/RobertoBlake2. It is the number 2. Thank you so much, Chris, for having me.
For sure. Yeah, no. Absolutely. And I'm going to be taking you to the airport, too.
Yep,
so
absolutely. So the fun times keep on coming.
Thank you, everybody, for asking solid questions. Like I said, we just could not cover all of them, though I know there were many. And I can do my best to address them in future episodes. Or if you're so inclined, ask the same question on Twitter. Roberto's on Twitter. So
all day, every day.
There, even when he's not there, he's there. So you can continue to ask the question if you wanted the question directed to Roberto, even if he wasn't able to answer it in this video. Well, at least you guys got a little bit of a gear fix. You saw a little bit of hardware, which is, kind of out of the ordinary for me, or a video that I might do. Tomorrow, TLDR will be back in its normal channel, LockerGnome.com. I'm sorry, that's another website. YouTube.com/LockerGnome. TLDR happens every weekday live. We're trying to do TLDR live on the weekends. It was a great idea, Liz. And then thank her for that, man. I'm just telling you, there's a lot to be thankful for. Not just the tofurkey that I think we're going to be eating for Thanksgiving, which I've heard is a no-go, according to Liz right now. I'm getting this, which either means, well, it probably means just stop, period, end of story. Don't forget to subscribe on Twitch or become a patron. Thank you, Notch Embracer. Absolutely correct. If you want to join the Discord chat, open 24/7. Patreon.com/Chris Pirillo, Twitch.tv/Chris Pirillo. Links are all in the video description, including Roberto stuff, or we'll make sure it's in there, of course, for posterity.
And how do you get gift cards?
Oh, gift cards, yes. Go.tagjag.com/free points. But here's the thing. If you go to the website right now, go.tagjag.com/free points, linked in the video description. Make sure you put an S there. HTTPS. It will redirect, but it is secure. Just so you know. Just for you. Now, and it's not really just for you. It's because Google wants everything to be S. Sometimes Google does some really S-y things to people, but
Google wants everything to just be S?
Yes, you gotta have S. If you've got a web domain, website, whatever, make sure you're S-ing. Oh man. Screensaver kicked in, which means this has been an hour. I love you. I appreciate you. But at this point, I'm going to leave you to your own devices. May the Force be with you.